Hey friends, this is Waylon. I am here live from Boulder, Colorado with yet another wonderful guest. We're going to have a good conversation about, I don't really know what, we'll see. But life coaching, wisdom, entrepreneurship, female entrepreneurship.
Hello.
I'm so excited to see you.
I'm so happy to be here.
So I've missed you throughout your Game of Thrones phase.
I know, and you just got me. I just got my hair done today. Just got back from the big city.
Oh my God, you look so different.
Thank you. You know, they say a woman who changes her hair is about to change her life. And I put some pink in it this time. We just kept going blonder, and
Fancy.
here we are.
Cool. Well, I
It's
love
so
the
good to
old
see
and
you.
I love the new. You know.
Yeah.
So wait, so just pretend we're friends in a cafe for a second, and then we'll get to the actual interview.
Okay.
Where are you living? You're in New York?
No, I'm on Lookout Mountain, so I'm here in Golden.
Oh my God. So you're right here. So anyway, let's talk business. So since the last time I saw you,
Okay.
which has been a long time, you've written some articles, you started an incredibly successful company. Maybe you had, I don't think you had started it when I knew you.
I've got to tell you a story, but okay.
Please.
You remind me of how we met.
Wait, what?
I'll tell you how I remember it. So first
Please.
of all, I just want to say sometimes we don't realize like how much it takes to lead something big, a lot of people on your platform. And I don't think people really understand like Elephant Journal, like housing all of these artists and writers and everything that you've built and created for people to share, and the community that you've built. It's incredible, and it's a huge part of the reason of why I've been able to build the business and the life and the confidence and the my own self-expression and artistry and the way it looks for me. It's it's huge. So I just want to say thank you, because yes, when we met, I did not have a business. I did not have Living Brave. I didn't have my brand. I just had words and experiences and emotions that I wanted to share through writing. And writing was a huge vessel for me, you know, to really learn who I was, explore who I was, and then be able to impact people with my words. Elephant was one of the first places that I ever wrote. And I would, oh my gosh, it's so funny because I feel like I'm being transported back to like 2017. I knew who Waylon was. You know, I knew you had Elephant Journal. I'd been posting on Elephant like every other week. I had my writing jobs that, you know, brought home some money. I was doing freelance writing and some kind of trashy blogs. I was just trying to make it work because I was traveling and trying to discover who I was.
Right.
And Elephant was like, I could write the real stuff, you know, like why I'd been exploring sobriety and what I was finding on my world travels and what I was experiencing about loneliness and heartache and all kinds of things. And people were relating and commenting. And
hearing that you didn't have to write just for clicks. You could write, you know, your real stuff.
Yeah. So thank you from the bottom of my heart, because I was just wanted to share, you know, that's the whole everything. Like we can talk about business today and talk about, you know, being able to actually like create momentum and create income and create impact doing what you love. It's an amazing thing. But I think ultimately like the story behind the story is just having something like deep in your heart that you want to share with the world, and having there was no outcome associated with that. It was for the pleasure of doing it, for the pleasure of writing, for the experience of being connected through words. And it was on Elephant, you know, Elephant was the first place that I ever shared publicly about genital herpes. I wrote that article, why HSV was one of the best things that ever happened to me. And I remember I was so proud of myself because you had the ranking.
Proud of you still. Like that article was like a thunderclap or like a lightning strike for so many people, not just people who had a particular condition or shame or whatever, but for general public awareness that it, you know, de-tabooifying, talking about it and being open about it. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it was the first place. I was so proud because you had that ranking system. And it was like if your article gets to the top, and I was like, oh my God, my article's like top on Elephant Journal. I was so excited, and it really helped me with my confidence, and it really helped me
Yeah.
just in, you know, we find our voice through using our voice. So sharing my voice on Elephant, and I actually write about our relationship and meeting you and knowing who you were and not even having the confidence to introduce myself to you. This was like 2017. I'd been writing for Relevant for a few years, and I was still like, still gaining my confidence, still gaining my personal power. And I had seen you at the Hanuman Festival in Boulder, and I was like, I was so like, just I wasn't confident enough to say, hey, I write for Elephant, you know? And through my experience of really being open about HSV and exploring my shame and, you know, going through the whole experience of the human experience, right? But beyond the surface level spirituality and the you are more than your mind and your body and just good vibes only, like yogi vibes, when I got rocked with HSV and I really had to finally look at that shame and use my voice, and I started to feel really powerful. The next year, I knew I wanted to share my story, and I saw you at Hanuman Festival, and the same festival, and I was like, I know who that is. And I walked up to you and I introduced myself. And I was so proud of that. You know, I was
Yeah.
like, I have a story I want to share. And you were so gracious and so kind. And you're like, yeah, let's share it. I'm going to hook you up with an editor. We're going to write it on Elephant. And that's a huge part of the journey, Waylon, because you were an inspiration and still are an inspiration to me and a mentor, you know, someone who models leadership. And having a voice and deciding to pull up a seat at the table and say, hi, I exist, you know, I'd love to contribute to your platform, or hey, I've been listening to you and you inspire me. Like there are 100 times the amount of people who like your stuff and comment that are inspired than you know about. And to decide that you're going to be a part of the conversation and build up the courage to let your inspirations know that you exist and to get up close, like that was a huge part of my journey. And just saying, hey, I exist, and you know, I have an idea and I want to write on your platform, and you giving me that opportunity and going on that journey was so big. Like I went from being afraid to introduce myself to you to I remember telling you the story before I published it. That was a huge part of my journey. I'm like, oh my gosh. And you told me, hey, this HSV thing, this story, like the way you tell it, it might sound weird, but you said these words like, but it kind of is pretty badass actually. Like it might sound weird, but it's badass. I was like, no, I feel badass.
Oh.
It's like the energy in which I'm coming to you with is the energy in which you respond to me.
Yeah.
And for so long, that story was so entangled with victimhood and shame, and people would really respond in that way, right? But you were an example of someone who I came with my courage, I came with my truth, and you just said, hey, that makes you even more of a badass, and I'm so excited to help you bring this story, you know, to others. So
well, that's what and then what is your business called or your program?
So it's called Living Brave is the whole brand.
So without getting into that, your literal business is called Living Brave.
Yeah.
And you know, mine is called the video and podcast series is called Walk the Talk Show. So you walked your talk. You were living brave. I mean, it's the shame to badass transition is so easy when you do it because you're jumping off a cliff, and falling off of a cliff is easy, but making that wholesome leap is so badass and so brave and so hard.
Yeah, but it feels so good.
And it feels so good. And you're jumping not to your death. You're jumping into a big, beautiful pool of other people who have shame and badassery and want to support you, you know?
Yeah. Because there's so much unconscious energy that's wrapped in trying to be somebody else. I didn't even
hide your thing because you think it's wrong, or
we don't even realize how much it's like you're tired all the time. You're like, there's not this like zest, this life force, and it's like this performance, this like all the energy that is stuck trying to hide things about yourself. If only they found out. And when I decided I was going to be someone, you could find nothing out about me. Go listen to episode 3 of the podcast. There's all of this potential, all of this power. It's like, gosh, all of a sudden there's 24 hours in a day.
Yeah, I mean, it makes me think, this is off topic, but not really. It makes me think of, we're having a national conversation around like trans rights and other issues. And there's like literally huge populations in our own country of good people who are dedicating a lot of their energy to suppressing other people in their trying to keep them in their shame or their weirdness, instead of being open about their unique soul. And it's there's so much energy in this world. There's that great quote that is like, it's no measure of health to be healthy in a sick society, something like that. Like, we actually, it's so easy. We could, like you were saying, we could have so much unburdened energy and connection if we would just stop shaming each other and being ashamed. And I think a little bit of shame is healthy. I talk about that from the Buddhist point of view. Like, I wouldn't mind, I'm sorry to get political, but I wouldn't mind if Donald J. Trump felt a little bit of shame once in a while, just accountability. It's good to feel accountability, for me, for you, for anyone. But, because a lot of narcissists will be like, don't shame me. So, a little bit. But anyway, I'm so not even proud. That sounds patronizing, but I'm so delighted to see your story unfold. So if you can let people know, what have you been doing the last, like, however many years since we caught up?
I just, like, I love this question. Everything that you just said around, like, gosh, before I even share, it's like the power of being for something. Like, you are like, you're about living brave. I'm about walking the talk. It's so easy to get behind what you're against. And that's what I love sharing, like, in business as well. It's like, if we can really decide, like, the world we're going to build, yes, we have to, like, speak about what's not working, and we need to, like, healthy debate, all of that. I know you're a huge proponent of that, but how much energy is tied up in, like, trying to tear things down rather than building new pathways forward? Like, I'm happy to explore that with you, but that's really, like, gosh, how much of my energy is spent in judgment and criticism, and how can I go say, well, okay, what's a solution that I want to build? What's a solution that we can build together? Like, being solution oriented is a huge part of, the work we do inside of in the inner work and out in the world together in community. So
let's discuss that for a sec. I think we get to the same mountaintop, but I do disagree a bit. There are things like structural racism, or climate crisis that are, literally fueled by fossil fuel companies who have known about it. There is domestic abuse. There is, a lack of mental health care. There is, another shooting in another school just yesterday in Denver. There are problems. And I think from the Buddhist point of view, and I can't speak for Buddhism, but from my experience of the Buddhist path, judgment is okay. When you criticize judgment, you're actually making a judgment. Pre-judgment is the problem. When we're prejudiced, right? Pre-judgment is prejudice. Judgment is discernment. And you judge, or I judge, that I want to eat an apple instead of a pile of dog poop, right? So judgment can be okay if it's clear. So let me know what you think about that, because but where I agree with you, just to conclude my little bit, where I agree with you is I don't know if you noticed, but when I said there's a lot of good people who are busy trying to shame others, I don't actually want to make anyone an enemy. I always used to say, when Donald Trump was president, I was like, I do hate him. Not because I'm dedicated to hate or I enjoy feeling hatred, but because he's doing cruel things to a vulnerable world. But if he woke up tomorrow and started doing some kind, responsible things, I would be happy to support him and love him. And do I love his little inner child lost beneath all his vacuum of greed and insecurity? Sure. But I've seen very little evidence of it. So, open-mindedness, it has to go with judgment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I completely hear you. And I think that this is important, right? Because
Yeah.
even when you're speaking before around a little bit of shame is okay. It's just yeah, it's almost a difference in our languaging, right? Because what you were speaking of, I'm like, Brene Brown's definition of guilt is like one-time adaptive guilt. Like, I did something wrong. I'm holding myself accountable. That's not like me. I was late. I really pride myself on honoring people's time. So I'm going to like, so yeah, I felt that, but I'm not going to beat myself up.
Exactly.
So shame is like that.
That's it. The key, I just love how you said that. I'm taking a little bit of responsibility, a little bit of regret, but I'm not going to beat myself up over it.
Yeah, that's adaptive. See, that's the difference in languaging. Like that, I would call that one-time adaptive guilt, where shame in my world is like a feeling of inadequacy, a feeling like I'm not enough, like there's something that's wrong about me. So if I was late or if I messed up, it's like, I'm so stupid. I'm such a bad friend. I'm wrong. I'm a mess, not I made a mess. You can feel bad for that once, and that's that difference. So when you were speaking to that energy of like discernment and like projection and trigger, like we all kind of use these words that it's like, when you get into the nuance of it, like, yeah, discernment and being able to say, here's a problem. Let's talk about it. Let's find a new pathway forward. Like judgment. We all judge. Our minds are very intelligent. They're here for a reason, but when it comes to like, for me, it's like, okay, when is someone acting out of a triggered place, out of a wounded place, rather than from a space of compassion, as you speak to, and sovereignty of looking at a situation saying, that's not right. That's not for me.
What you're describing is pre-judgment, acting out of a triggered place or a previously held preconception. Because judgment from a Buddhist point of view, and I understand a lot of this is languaging, or all of it maybe, but is if in Buddhism, they say the 5 kinds of confidence: clear seeing, etc. So if you're clear seeing, you see that an apple is organic, you want to eat it, it's offered, you're not stealing it. So that's a judgment, you eat it. And then by the same token, you don't want to maybe eat the GMO, processed, blah, blah, packaged in plastic. That is a judgment, but it could come out of clear seeing. Like I could judge that I like you as a human being, and that's not a bad thing. But if I'm even with our loved ones, like the Buddhist teaching is, we don't want to act out of assumption or blind faith. Like even with our loved ones or our friends, we're fresh in every moment. Yeah,
I love that. See, that's like that difference in language where it's like, what I was talking about is the prejudgment, is when you're like, I'm not going to engage in this because this person isn't available for a conversation, rather than, this is a time where we get to have healthy debate because we're coming from a space of fullness, sovereignty, ability to think clearly and not acting out of like a big trigger or wound. So yeah.
And I think you're an example, frankly, of what I'm talking about, which is why I think we get to the same place. Because I was just rereading your response to that your coaching package article on elephant that went kind of viral. And then you wrote a really kind, grounded, discerning, which, you could say is judgment, but not prejudgment. Because you made a lot of statements that were very discerning in your article. One of them was, the coaching industry is full of noise, copy-pasted ideas, and fake vulnerability. You'll see that if you're looking for it everywhere. That is a really clear statement. But it was in context, you were saying how there are exceptions and there are a lot of problems with that other article. But you didn't make that person an enemy, even though you disagreed with it in certain ways. So I think you're an example of discernment or judgment without, we all fall into prejudgment, but without, that judginess that you were talking about.
Yeah. Yeah. Being able to see the human in somebody else, the direct reflection of we're everything, you know, when we
Oh,
don't want to come off a certain way, when we're really put off by a way somebody else is. It's like we are all things, you know. If I can accept this within myself, then I can see through this person's matrix. You know, it's like I don't exist as a reaction to a reaction. I know you know this work. It's like as much as I can source and see and witness the reaction I have to someone else's energy, and really the leadership is like, can I decide who I'm going to be in this moment and allow for space to meet me where I am, or at least maintain my level of sovereignty and dialogue?
You're so inspiring. I feel like there's some quote, I'm trying to remember it, but I remember when I was young, again in the Buddhist community, this like Buddhist teacher Reggie Ray said, he like picks me out of a crowd. He knew me, but at that time I was like very bold, and I was sort of like you, maybe like when we met at Hanuman.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, Waylon, and I was like, what? And he said, you know, you're going to have so much wind behind you, or something like that. Like so much, you're going to do some good things and some helpful things. Your only task will be to sort of like stay upright with all the wind, you know, with all that energy. And that's kind of how I feel, just not having seen you for a few years. You have, like, it's like once you rip open the little cocoon of shame or whatever, you just like exploded with, I don't know, with being helpful to other people, and wisdom and leadership and, you know, entrepreneurship. So.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And yet, like, the most amazing part about the journey is, you know, being of service and contributing to a movement, a brand, a business, your community, is who you become along the way.
Yeah.
And I think being open to just being an endless student of life and being continually humbled, you know, and just growing with your community. I think that's, when you look at even, you know, the size of the business or what we've done and how it's like a multi-million-dollar business and it's all fun and exciting, but you really look at it, it's not a huge community. You know, it's a pretty small, relatively small community. And why it is the way it is, I believe, is like real relationships, you know, real relationships with people and a desire to really grow together. So many of my clients have been with me for the whole ride. You know, they've told their friends. They want to, it's like they get excited when I explore a new part of myself and bring it forward. And my art, you know, business is just art. It's not me on a silver platter. It's I built something and I'm excited about it. And I want to share that with you. And there are people who just watch and they get inspired. And that's what's really fun. It's like, I know I'm 2%, 5% of who I'm becoming. I think you can't even quantify it. And I'm not ashamed of that. I'm excited about that. I'm excited that I might look back on this live and say, I had no idea what I was talking about. But that's part of art and being an artist, like putting your work out, because you're never going to improve. You're never going to grow through just, but what if it's not my best yet? What if I mess up? Like, what if I lose my train of thought? What if? It's like you owe it to yourself to go find out.
What are, you know, what are some of the most helpful sort of lessons that you've grown into? You're talking about growing, being at that 1 or 2 or whatever percent of who you will become, particularly for female entrepreneurs.
Yes. Oh, I'm very excited that you asked this, because this came to mind when you were speaking in the beginning around like, okay, let's talk about business and spirituality, materialism. There's an interesting, like, the pursuit of more. And this will be interesting because, you know, bringing in your background, this feeling like for so many of us, the pursuit of more has been tied to lack, has been tied to shame. And we're really burned by it. It's like, if I'm pushing myself, I don't even want to do it. Like, if there's this sense of like creation and work and pursuit of more and these milestones, it just feels so exhausting and like we don't want to do it. And it feels like it's anti-spiritual in a way, because it's like, coming back to your values and the fact that this is for our joy, our fulfillment, our impact, our service. And yet what I love helping, especially with, and we all have, if you resonate with speaking of feminine, masculine energy, but this like feminine force, you know, it's a creative process. It's this desire to build and create from wholeness. And this idea of being grateful, appreciative, and enough exactly where you are, and yet still having this pull, like this fire within you, like there's something else, like there's something that wants to come through. Like how good could this get? And when within a relationship, like I'm so happy, I love you so much, and I'm excited. I feel like it's limitless. So let's see, let's grow, let's lean in. And I think there's a confusion, especially around women. It's like the worthy woman, the woman who you're like, oh, she just, you know, she did everything for everybody else. She never thought about herself. She never asked for too much. Everyone's clapping, you know, like, oh, it's amazing. And so that's kind of what we're programmed. If I ask for more, if I say like, yeah, I'm making a good income. Yeah, I'm happy. You know, one of my clients this morning said she was hiding behind gratitude. She was hiding behind her gratitude at certain points. Like, no, I'm fine. I'm grateful. You know, everything's great. Like, how dare she ask for more? How dare she pursue more? How dare she let go of what worked? Because she has this intuitive pull within herself that there's something bigger or deeper or more meaningful or more her, and it's brave and it's scary because it's unknown.
Love that.
And in the unknown is the magic and the miracles and the leaps and the how did that even happen? Like when I look back on my past 3 years, it's like everything was good, everything is fine. And I think we ought to start growing from great. A lot of us need to reach rock bottom to grow, and I think we're part of, and why we can use each other as maps is like you don't need to hit rock bottom with alcohol to realize that you want to stop feeding your body, or with food to realize you just want to treat yourself better, that you get to grow from great. And the nuance is like when you feel full, when you feel grateful, appreciative, joyful, you're happy to be in service, and you say, and I wonder how good can it get? I wake up every morning, and most mornings, and it's like, oh, are you ready for the best day of your life? Not because I'm going to be so disappointed if this isn't the best day of my life, but it just gets me in the state of like, gosh, but today could be the best day ever. It's like a little kid thing. My sister used to do that as a kid. And I love that desire-led living. Like it feels good to want, actually, when it comes from wholeness. And that's like this flirtatious, joyous.
It feels good to want when it comes from wholeness. Love that.
Yeah,